Hi, my name is Alyssa McGuirl, and I'm a senior here at Thayer Academy. My presentation is titled From Awareness to Action, Why Knowing Isn't Enough. Now, climate change has been and is one of the greatest challenges we have ever faced. Yet, sometimes it can feel as though we haven't made much progress on this issue, or at least not as much as we should. Why? Why is it so hard to inspire action against climate change? That is what I'm going to answer in my presentation. So first, let's clear up a common misconception, which is that the majority of people don't believe in climate change, or if they do, they don't think it's that big of a deal. Well, according to a study done by the Pew Research Center, 54% of Americans agree that climate change is a serious threat. Yet it ranks 17th out of 21 national issues. Why? Clearly, people are aware that climate change is real and that there is a problem, but that awareness is not translating into behavior. This is because, despite all of the information we have about climate change, our brains contain barriers that make climate change a particularly difficult and complicated issue for us to combat. So I've narrowed these barriers to 5. Present bias, salience, no specific enemy, probabilistic harm, and loss aversion. Let's start with present bias. As humans, we tend to focus most on the here and now, not the future. Climate change, as much as it does affect the here and now, is often framed as a future issue, making it distant from us, a problem for future generations. Now, this makes it particularly hard to combat because it's very hard to inspire action in the here and now when most people believe it's not a problem for right now. Next is salience. Salience is the quality of being particularly noticeable or prominent. Climate change is not salient, or at least not as salient as, say, economic instability or human rights issues. Dirty air and water, for instance, are noticeable, and we can see it, so we enact laws and reforms that get rid of it. But you can't see greenhouse gases, and most of the effects you can't see either, at least the worst ones, which are yet to come. So if you can't see the gases and you can't see their effects, then it might not be something you worry about. The third barrier is that climate change lacks a specific enemy. Yes, we can blame the oil and gas industries or villainize certain people or groups whom we don't agree with, but the reality is there isn't one group or person to blame. Climate change has been brought about by numerous human actions over many, many years, not one action committed by a singular group or person. We naturally want to blame someone, to unite against a common enemy. But when the person to blame is ourselves, it makes it a lot harder to take responsibility, let alone actually take action against the issue we created. Next is probabilistic harm. So climate change doesn't cause immediate guaranteed harm. Instead, its effects are often uncertain, gradual, and spread out over time. And people are far less likely to act on risks that feel more like possibilities rather than certainties. And that brings me to my final barrier, loss aversion. So, quick scenario for everyone. If you had $900 and I told you could take a bet, and if you took this bet, you would have a 90% chance of increasing that money to $1,000, but a 10% chance of losing all of it. Would you take that bet? Now, before you answer, think about your answer, and then I'm going to give you another scenario. What if instead of having $900, you were $900 in debt? And I gave you a similar bet. 90% chance that that debt is increased to $1,000, but a 10% chance that you were completely forgiven. Would you take that one? Now, most people say no to the first option, but yes to the second, when fundamentally they're the exact same scenario. This is loss aversion at work. People are more negative about possible losses than they are positive about possible gains. When dealing with climate change, there has to be some sacrifice, some loss, at least at first. But as humans, we don't want to lose anything. So we push off the problem to the future, even though we know that the longer we wait, the greater the loss will be. So now that we understand these barriers, there's another piece of the puzzle that we have to recognize, which is that knowledge isn't the problem. People already understand environmental issues. Many of you presented on them today. We're high school students and we're talking about complex issues with AI and other areas of sustainability. So clearly, more information isn't actually changing behavior. Well, the thing to recognize is that people don't always act on what they know. They act on what's easy, normal, and immediate. So what do? Well, we design for that specific kind of behavior. Instead of attempting to change minds, we change the systems that those decisions happen in. We focus on how and why people make the decisions that they do, and then we adapt to make the sustainable choice the easy choice. We can do this by using behavioral design and choice architecture. But what can we actually do differently? What does behavioral design and choice architecture actually entail? Well, I've come up with 3 strategies that I think could greatly increase the action taken against climate change. Number 1, improve disclosure and feedback. Let people see the impact that their individual choices have on the environment. Next, take advantage of norms, specifically social norms. Make the sustainable choices the new norm. And finally, never underestimate the power of the default. So to start off, make the impact visible. People are much more likely to change their behavior when they can actually see the results of their actions. For example, things like energy use comparisons or greenhouse gas tracking help turn something abstract into something much more concrete. When the impact becomes visible, it becomes real and much harder to ignore. Next, using social norms. People naturally follow what others are doing. I mean, that's how influencers on social media make their money. So instead of telling people what they should do, it's much more effective to show them what others are already doing. When sustainable behavior feels normal, it becomes something people repeat without even thinking about it. And finally, make it automatic. People tend to stick with the default options because they don't want to have to make their own decisions. That takes time, patience, and a lot of thought that, quite honestly, us as humans don't really want to do. So if sustainability is built into the defaults, whether that's double-sided printing or renewable energy, people will follow it without needing to make an active decision themselves. In this case, the default effectively becomes the decision. So all of this leads us to shift how we think about environmental stewardship. Traditionally, we've focused on educating people and hoping that they act. But a far more effective approach is designing systems that make sustainability behavior inevitable. It's not just about individual choices. It's about the environments and systems those choices happen in. So, to sum it all up, awareness alone is not enough. Behavior must be built into the systems around us, and small design changes can have very large impacts. If we want people to act sustainably, we must make sustainability part of everyday life. Thank you.